Suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us. Here ends the reading.
Like most international students, coming to St. Andrews, I felt overwhelmed and a little bit intimidated when I first arrived. I would get confused as to why people burst into laughter in a conversation happening on dorm. And I did not understand what people were talking about during school meetings, lunch announcements, English or religion classes. I almost forgot how to talk and interact with people. All the communication skills that I have been so proud of in my first language. I could not find myself, the part of me that was outgoing, talkative, and confident. You might think I'm exaggerating. What on earth is the big deal about moving to another country? However, from my perspective, it is as if the school was a train running at 200 miles per hour, and I was trying to jump onto it. What's more, the people on the train who were coaching me were all speaking Martian, a language that I always make stupid mistakes and have difficulty both understanding or speaking. Aside from all the language and culture shocks, moving to a brand new planet also broadened my horizon in terms of sports knowledge. Before I came to St. Andrews, I had never heard of the term squash before. I did not know if squash was a kind of vegetable or a kind of sport. I was completely an alien squash player when I first got on the team. As one of my coaches said, squash can be a sport that can be really frustrating when you first start. And this turned out to be true. So not surprisingly, my ranking was number 1. Well, if you come from the bottom, every time I walk into a court for practice, I kept telling myself, you'd better be brave today and be willing to accept the reality that you will probably still be the bottom. I knew that I was not going to make any huge progress within several hours practice. But by the end of the practice, I thought I'd probably end up hitting 2 more balls than the day before. And every time I played with someone with a higher rank and was defeated, I felt even more frustrated and helpless. I wished to learn some new techniques from them every time I played, but all the fancy strokes they had mastered so well did not seem to work on me. But I knew that I still had to keep playing, refuel my confidence, and do my best each time, because no one can reach a higher level without going through all these tough moments. It is actually quite hard to remain confident and optimistic when you are at the bottom of a team. Well, I guess the only thing good about being at the lowest position is that whichever direction you go, you can only go up. Though I always tried really hard, I still could not break the record of not winning a single match in a season. There was one night that I was fed up with life. I was not able to travel to an away match that was scheduled for the top 9 players, and I still remember how it felt when I saw the school bus drive away. I felt abandoned and helpless, and all the pessimistic emotions rushed out of me. I felt desperate and exhausted by all the academic, athletic, artistic, and social tasks, expectations from my parents and people I loved, and an inability to move forward. I was literally in the midst of a tedious and seemingly endless marathon. I was struggling, and I could not really see any light or hope ahead. I wondered what sense I could make out of these miserable experiences. Well, let me assure you that in the midst of our struggles and disappointments, the Lord is still with us. It seems hard to understand that God put us into challenges because of love. However, as Paul stated in his letters to the Corinthians and Romans, we rejoice in suffering because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, hope, and empathy. We are comforted by our God, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in the same sufferings with which we ourselves are comforted by God. It is with this perspective that I began to understand some of the things that have happened to me in my life. and I hope you also begin to understand some of the things that you have to endure. Though my ranking did not change by the end of the season, I was unexpectedly awarded the coach's award for JV girls squash by Mr. Khan. As he said, Jiani grew both physically and emotionally throughout the season. She grew from not being able to hit a single ball the first day of the practice to being able to hit some more balls by the end of the season. This characterizes what has happened to me and made me realize that God is trying to recruit us through all these trials. We might not see the benefit right now, but perhaps God is trying to prepare us for future tasks and challenges. Another thing I learned after coming here is to have empathy for others who feel helpless and detached. There used to be a girl who moved from a small town to my elementary school in Shanghai. She was shy and reluctant to speak, partly because of her unusual Chinese accent, and partly because she did not know much about our social life, what my friends and I were talking about, and all the fancy stuff that was exclusive to city life. She was once being laughed at for her unusual accent by a bunch of people when she was speaking during class, and I was one of them. I knew that she needed our help and empathy because it was not her fault that she was not born in our city. I could have come to her and let her know that we still care about her and admire her courage and passion. I could have stood up and defended her. However, I chose to escape, to abandon her and to let her face all the hard times on her own. But now, ironically, I find myself in the same position that she was 10 years ago. I moved to an entirely new school in an entirely new country, where I might be considered to have a weird accent. Like this girl, I don't know how to express myself from time to time and have little knowledge about the American culture. I feel intimidated sometimes by how to jump into a fast conversation and always make awkward mistakes. It was not until this point that I started to have empathy for the girl. And in fact, I now wish that I had been by her side when she felt most desperate and helpless. I wish I had not judged her by her silence due to the cultural difference. I know that studying alone in another country is definitely not the toughest challenge I will encounter in my whole life, and nor is being at the bottom of the squash team. However, experiencing all this definitely prepares me for future tasks and endows me with true empathy for others who have gone through or are going through the same hardship. Now I begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm glad I'm here, experiencing all these challenges and growing from them. When you realize that God loves you, and the challenges are working within you to make you splendid, then in the midst of all your trials, all your hard times, all your dark lonely nights and your cryings, you will be able to look forward to the light with assurance, poise, and grace.